Today on Never Legends podcast, I have Madison football coach Justin Counts, who had a huge win over South Lakes on Friday, a must win for the Warhawks, who were coming off a state a final visit last year. Coach is a Marshall graduate, and he went to UVA and played baseball. All great people go to UVA, so there's no surprise there. But he's had an amazing career in coaching at assistant coach in baseball, but more importantly, today, a head football coach for the last several years. I think they've won four regionals in a row, maybe five, and at least one state final. Coach, did I get most of that right?
Yep, pretty close.
Pretty good. Yeah. Well, look, the first time we talked a few years ago, we were talking about how every game is a blowout. I'd go to a football game, and not just Freedom Woodbridge at the time. Every game was blowouts. Even games that were close on paper would be blowouts. I got there and I felt like it was a wasted trip. This year, Westfield has been in six games, less than one score. You've been in Stonebridge, Westfield, Centerville, uh, Lake Braddock. I mean, dogfights. Centerville's been in dogfights. I feel like I'm seeing more close games than blowouts now. Have things changed in football over the last several years, or is it more the luck of the draw?
I think it's probably a little bit of the luck of the draw. I think that there's no elite team, maybe. I think that there's a lot more parity kind of on the higher levels. I do think that there is a separation sometimes, but I think the scheduling has done a pretty good job of putting um, like talented teams together to get these types of games. And I think, some of these obviously with Centerville and Westfield and South Lakes and are just our district games, and they've always been really competitive. So I think, we're kind of used to playing in these types of games, but I think overall, it's better for our game when the games are close, for sure.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting because there is no overwhelming favorite. I guess we probably would have said Lake Braddock was, but they lost to South County this week. You played them very close. There is no really team to be afraid of in Division Six, at least in Northern Virginia. I'm not sure about the rest of the state. So you've had all these close games. As a coach, are you enjoying the challenge? I mean, obviously, when it's close, you don't always win the close ones, but are you enjoying the challenge as a coach to try to figure these games out and get a win?
Sure, sure. I think, that's why you want to play in these types of games. I think you get big crowds at these evenly matched games. I think you get a great high school environment. I think it's really everything that you're hoping for. And, those are the types of games these kids are going to remember for the rest of their lives. They'll be talking about them in the VNN when they're, 20 years from now. Remember this game, remember that game. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. Obviously you want to come out on the correct end of those, but that's not always the case. But I still just think that the atmosphere and the intensity and kind of playing all the way down to the wire is the stuff that builds the memories that make high school football so great.
I mean, it's great for the fans. Last year, I think you had two close games until you got to the state final, and they both were Westfield. And this year, like I said before, every game has been close, but the teams that you're playing close are the biggest rivals to get back to the state playoffs. So it's not like you're that far away. Do you think the fact that the games are closer, your teams will be more ready for that challenge? But because you obviously were ready for Oscar Smith last year.
Well, it's interesting. I think, Julian, in that case, it really depends on your team and kind of the personality of your team, the experience that your team had. Last year's team, um, we had a lot of experienced players, guys who were 2 or 3 year varsity players. So they had been in big games. They understood what that was all about. They understood how to play when things got a little tight, when the games got close. So this team is an older team, but they're just not that experienced. They've watched a lot of those types of games. They've been involved, um, through a preparation and practice during the week, but they just really haven't gotten a lot of experience on the field and those types of things. So you have to learn that. I mean, finishing games and winning games and playing in tight, intense games is a skill that you have to develop. So that's something that we've kind of tried to working on all year is, we feel like we've been four or five handful of plays away from being able to win some of these games or all of these games that we've been in close. And it's kind of the execution piece. It's kind of the understanding your assignment. It's kind of being ready to be the guy who will make that play in that big situation. So that's all stuff that we've had to learn, and and as a coach, I'm hoping that we've been learning as we go. And to your point, the teams that we've lost to are all going to be the teams that we're hopefully competing with when we get if we get into the playoffs and we get this thing moving in the right direction. So it is something to kind of build on and kind of hang your hat on. You can go back to that film and watch, if we had done this or if we had done that, we might have gotten a different outcome. So for this particular team, nobody likes to lose a game, but I do think that there were some real learning experiences for us to grow as a football team to hopefully put ourselves in a better position moving forward as we get into the playoffs from some of those experiences we had in those tight games early on.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I was lucky enough to watch the Centerville game next to Coach Pudge, and he was upset that you were overusing his third baseman. I should say both of you guys as third baseman coming up this year. Matthew had an incredible game, and he's having a great season. Coach, when you think about rebuilding this team, last year you had Dominic Nisley, before you had the Dredge brothers. You've always kind of had that go-to back, and Matthew is having a great season. He's becoming that back, and all credit to him. But it's interesting this year that you have to probably on offense, and you have a great offensive coordinator. What remind me his name, Coach? Heck, I believe his name.
Tim Hecht. Yeah, Tim
Yeah,
Hecht.
yeah, too bad. It's different though. You just can't throw the ball to Dominic, and Dominic just creates some magic. This year, you guys got to really earn your money over there on the sidelines.
Well, it's funny, last year, all the time we'd have a play, we'd throw a 3-yard pass to Dom and he would make a move and it'd be a 60-yard touchdown. And we would all look at each other and say, that is great coaching, So, but what Coach Heck does and all the offensive staff, what they do a great job with is kind of figuring out what our personality is and what our players can do well and try to put them in those positions to be successful. We had a bunch of injuries early on that kind of hamstrung us a little bit on what we could do. We're not going to replace a player like Dom. He's a once in a coach's lifetime type of player, particularly at Madison. We just don't get kids with his skill set. So, um, but we've played with different kinds of skill sets, and Coach does a great job of putting those guys in position to be successful and kind of teaching them how to do it. And it looks sure, and it's a lot more 3 yards in a cloud of dust and than it was kind of explosive plays. But I still think that he's found a way to be successful with that, and we still have guys on the outside who can catch it and get open, and we still got guys who can run it through the middle. But it's just a different look for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like you have to earn those yards, and it's more of a ball control offense this year. I mean, you're keeping the ball five minutes before scoring, whereas like as you said, uh, Dom could pretty much do it on your own. Well, last year you had a great quarterback. God, I'm zoning on his name. Great baseball player. What was your quarterback's name, Coach?
Yeah, Cale Yates.
Cale Yates, just
Yeah.
great competitor. I mean, his state championship game is just a performance for the ages. But this year you have, I believe, it's Andrew Rowan
Yes.
is the quarterback, and he's looking like he kind of appears from far away like Cale, but it's a different. Talk a little bit about Andrew and how he's been able to step into those shoes.
Yeah, I've been really proud of Andrew. Obviously, Kale, like you said, not only what he did as a player on the field, but his leadership and everything that he brought to our program, just from a character standpoint, is really tough to replicate, and it's tough to expect any high school kid to be able to provide that. So what Andrew's done, he's tried to be himself. He's tried to lead in his way. He's been working really hard at practice. And I really do think, obviously he doesn't have the experience. This is his first year starting for us. He sat behind Kale last year, and I'm really proud of what he's done. I'm really proud of the way he's been competing for us. He's taken some shots, and he's just kept coming back and fighting, and he's trying to put us in the best position to win. I think he has really grown as a leader, and I think the guys are really starting to trust him in those types of close situations that he's going to be able to execute for us. And it's just hard to replace that type of leadership. It's just hard to do. And so I've been really proud of Andrew, what he's done for us this year.
Well, that's awesome. It's great to see players emerge. That's the beauty of public school sports, is that you never know. You have the kids that are districted to your school, and you never know what the product is going to be. But every year, kids emerge. There are Andrew Rowans on every team, and every
Yeah.
year, in different levels,
I
of
mean,
course.
absolutely. I mean, that's the greatest joy I take, Julian, is watching these kids come in as ninth graders and then see what they make themselves into by the time they leave here. And hopefully, our program helps them develop some of that just physical maturity, but just the mental toughness and all the things that they're going to need when they're moving forward. But just to watch these guys grow and turn into young men that we can be proud of. I mean, that's what I love about this.
Yeah, that's the beauty of public school sports. Well, let's talk about Pudge's third baseman. Last year, Matthew Weiler was a solid fullback. He was a great counterweight to the explosiveness that Dominic provided you. And you did tell me that you thought Matthew was going to be able to play the tailback this year. Talk a little bit about his evolution to more instead of like the blocking back, but kind of like the man.
Yeah, well, he did play a little bit of tailback for us last year, and when we would split Dom out wide, he'd be the featured tailback. But it was, obviously a different running style than Dom. He's a big, strong kid. He's probably close to 220 pounds, and he's
Wow.
6'1". But he's got really great feet. He really has good vision. He has good balance. He's very hard to bring down. Very rarely does he stop at first contact. He gets a couple extra yards, once he's been hit, and he's just a battler. We really leaned on Matthew as one of the few experienced guys coming back on our offense. We told him, we were going to expect a lot from him, not only on the field, but as a leader and kind of showing these guys how to do things. And he got a little banged up early in the year. He's getting healthy. We're feeding him the ball a lot, and he's really excelled with that. And he's a great teammate. He's helping the young guys. Um, he's really emerged as a more vocal leader, which is really not his. Um, I wouldn't say he's uncomfortable doing it, but it's really not what he's had to do in the past. So he's really emerged as a leader, and he's just a guy that we know that when it's crunch time, we can count on him being there and giving us his best.
Yeah. Well, you got a big run out of your fullback against Centerville. I think he
Yeah,
went 60 yards, and he,
yeah,
he looked awfully lot like Matthew. But when I was behind my camera that night, and I realized that's number three. Talk
yeah,
about your fullback. Who's playing
yeah. So
fullback for you?
that's Jack Rigodello, and Jack played for us. Jack missed a bunch of last year. He broke his leg, and he came back maybe right when the playoffs were starting, or maybe a week before, and really helped us on that playoff drive through. Again, another big physical kid, and as you saw, he runs really well for a big kid. Um, he's probably bigger than Matthew, right about the same size, and so having them both in the backfield is a really good, 1-2 punch. He's a great blocker. But he's also a very good runner. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Very talented athletically. So but he missed most of the season. He had a stress fracture in his back. So he's been back only about. He came back for the Westfield game, was his first game back. So he's still getting back into football condition. But he's been a huge lift to our offense. And he is a great leader. He is kind of a born leader. He's a lot more vocal. As soon as he got back in there, he was at practice every day, even when he was out. But when he got back in there with the pads on, it just lifted everybody. Kind of first of all from being excited to have him back, but secondly just his presence and the way he kind of demands accountability from everybody has been a real lift to us. Getting things done in practice. So happy to have him back, and he's a great piece of what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, coach, you've been blessed with some great receivers, tight ends over the last couple of years. I think one of them was a Yates. I think one of them was another Nisley. I think it was, Dominic had an older brother. I think who played.
Yeah, Darren.
You had very talented receiving core that Kale was able to throw to. Have you been able to replace those guys?
Yeah, I feel really good about our receiving core. Anthony Voinis has kind of been our senior leader. and he's been really good for us. Obviously, we're running the ball more than we have maybe last year. We've never really been a huge throwing team, but we still throw the ball 12 to 15 times. So we count on those guys. Um, Will Smoot has been he's a junior. We use him. Um, I don't want to say he's our Dom replacement, but he's the guy that we kind of move around and use similar to the role that we had Dominic in. Obviously, he's not quite as electric, but he can go and he's had some real big plays for us. Um, so we've been real pleased. We got a good tight end that we like a lot, and got a couple of the young receivers that are kind of making a name for themselves. So I feel really good about that group.
Yeah. Coach, I think you always do a great job in the trenches. Have you been happy with your offensive line?
I have been. Again, I had one returning offensive lineman, so we had to put a lot of
Just
work in with
one.
those.
Wow.
Um, but they're really starting to come together. We've managed to stay relatively healthy there. We've had to make a couple of moves, but relatively healthy there. And those guys, again, you know, because we run the ball so much, so many teams do so many different things defensively. These guys really have to mentally be uh, have a really good understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and how we try to block things and be able to make adjustments on the fly. So it's been kind of a learning process for those guys throughout the year to kind of get up to speed mentally with all the looks that we're seeing. But I think they've done a great job. We've been pretty successful running the ball, and a lot of that credit goes to those guys and our offensive line coach, Coach Kennard.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't do much without an offensive line. I don't care how I don't care how much
Yeah,
talented or how creative you are as coaches. Let's talk about defense. I have noticed I've been to two of your games this year and watched another online, but my old tenant Joseph Gore seems to be having a great
yeah.
season and on defense. And I also noticed this is still the hard-hitting defensive team that all your Madison teams are.
Well, that's something that we really try to hang our hat on. We want to be physical on defense, and our kids really embrace that. I mean, that's kind of the culture that we try to establish there. We want to be known for that. Joe has been um, kind of the anchor. He's I tease him a lot because he's just very quiet. He's unassuming, but he gets on the football field and he's a great tackler. He's really been a great player for us. He's a 3-year starter. So he's a guy that we really lean on in the back of the defense as a safety. Just a guy who can come up in the run and he can get into pass protection pass coverage really well. He's just an all around really good player. But we've had again we graduated our entire defensive line. We
Wow.
lost 2 or 3 linebackers. We had one corner and one safety coming back. So we got a lot of new faces out there. So we've really leaned on the guys like Joe and Luke Salvosa, who's been a stalwart for us. He's a 4-year varsity player. Um, so those are the types of guys that we've really leaned on to try to bring these guys up to speed. Again, you can draw up all these creative defenses or creative offensive plays. If your kids can't grasp it or can't execute it, it just doesn't do any good. So we've had to kind of bring these guys along. They've got to get familiar with what our base concepts are, and then we can add some wrinkles. So I feel like we're getting to the point where we can start adding some more stuff to their plate. But I've been really pleased with the way they play and kind of the energy. We've played some great passing or great offensive teams. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Centerville is as impressive as I've seen from an offensive standpoint. Like Braddock is great. Um, Westfield has presents challenges. South Lakes is I mean, obviously, all these teams that we're playing present a lot of different challenges. So we've been tested and stressed, and I think like our guys have, we haven't won all the games, but they've certainly played as hard as they can, and they've put us in position to be able to win for sure.
Yeah. Coach, last year, one thing I have a strong memory of is you were able to sub a lot on defense, even against Oscar Smith, a team with Division One talent everywhere. I know you're not anxious to see them again, even though you know if you're seeing them, then
I'd love to.
yeah,
That means we're
exactly.
in the States,
It's
so yeah, I'd love to see them.
yeah, that means it's good news if you're seeing them.
Right,
But
right.
then you still have to game plan for them, Coach. But anyway,
Sure.
I did notice last year that you were able to use a lot of players on defense. You brought a lot of subs in on defense. Are you that deep this year as well on defense?
We're trying to be. We're trying to be. I wouldn't say we're as deep as we were last year, but I think that, obviously, we want to try to bring these younger guys along and give them some experience, in-game experience, to help their process. And I think we've been pretty pleased with some young defensive linemen in particular that we've kind of worked into the rotation. I don't know that we've done quite as much of that in the back end of the defense, but we have been able to work some younger guys in. And we tell those guys, you can earn your opportunities in practice. You got to make sure that you're putting stuff on tape in practice and doing the things in front of the coaches that make it so the coach has to play you. That's kind of the mantra. So we'd love to develop as much depth as we can. We'd love to have substitutes in there when we can get them, just kind of rotate, keep people fresh. But they got to earn that, and we're just not handing that out. So we've been pretty pleased, like I said, with a couple of young guys, and we're hoping some more guys will kind of establish themselves for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys, I know that you had some injuries against Stonebridge. Have you guys, knock on wood, been pretty healthy of late?
Well, we're starting to get some of those guys back. We had a couple guys injured in our first scrimmage against Battlefield, that were out for a long time. And we've kind of subsequently had some guys kind of drop along the way. But yeah, for the most part, we're getting those guys back. You got to get them back into football shape. We got to get them back up to speed. It's one thing to kind of watch practice, but when you get back involved and having to play, physically, you got to kind of get your body back into where it needs to be to catch up with everybody else. But yes, for the most part, we are healthy, as healthy as you're going to be at this stage in the season, and working some of those guys back into what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, Coach, when we go back to the games this season, you've had the Stonebridge game was a classic matchup. I definitely think it's a game you could have won. But Stonebridge is a really good team, but obviously you're in the game. It was a 7-0 game. You're on a 25-yard line or so in the last possession. So you could have put that thing into overtime. Obviously, the Centerville and Westville games, those are anybody's ball game. As was Lake Bragg, that the games that you won. Do you like where you are this year? That you play against some great competition. Your team has already proven they can play with that competition. How are you guys sitting right now?
Well, I do, to answer your initial question, I do like where we are now. It's interesting, Julian. Like I said, I was kind of alluding to before. I mean, every team is different, and this team, I think, probably would not have continued to improve at the rate that we needed to improve on if we had won some of those games. Maybe they would have felt a little better about themselves. I think our seniors have done a great job of making sure that we're not, these losses can be crushing, particularly the close ones in the last minute. Those things can really be upsetting. We've done a great job of keeping a positive mind frame and understanding, what the end game is and what we're really trying to accomplish here, and what we've got to do to keep getting better week in and week out. And so our kids have done a great job of that. That's kind of been the message. Obviously, we've got to clean some things up if we want to win these types of games, but these are the types of games that we're going to be in if we want to be champions. So you got to learn how to win those games. So that's kind of the message. Whether we're going to do that or not is yet to be seen, but I do feel like the attitude is great and the mindset is great, and they feel like if they keep working at it, that we're gonna have an opportunity, and that's really all you can ask this time of year is to put yourself in a position to be in these types of games and have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the South Lakes game a little bit. You're 0-2 or 1-2 coming in. You're
0 and
0
2 and 0
0
and
2
2.
coming in. South Lakes is a very tricky team to gauge. I mean, they should have beaten Battlefield, which is one of the best teams in the area. You never really know what to expect, but they're a very explosive team. They got some talent. So you're coming into that game, you're trailing. And then I couldn't make it to that game, but I was watching the ticker, I was getting the scores, and you finally blew them out. Talk a little bit about that game. It must have been an incredible feeling to get that win.
Yeah, well, South Lakes has always given us trouble. The coaches over there do a great job, and um, their kids always play hard. They've always got good athletes. They're physical. So we knew we were going to be in for a game. There's no question. Um, they got a couple of really good athletes on offense. They got a big tight end who's really physical. Their offensive line is really physical. Their quarterback is slippery. He's a good thrower, but he's a great runner. So we knew we'd have our hands full. And they kind of had us on the ropes there early on. We returned a kick for a touchdown. It was huge. Um, and then started playing really good defense. We were, and I think we made it tough for the quarterback to get comfortable. and we made it tough for the wide receivers when they caught the ball. We were very physical with tackling, so I felt really good about that. And I felt like we played a real complete game. I think on all, like I said, special teams was great. Our defense really played well, and our offense we just kind of hammer and hammer and hammer. And I think Matthew had another great game to load to tackle. And I think by midway through the half, they kind of started getting tired of tackling him over and over and over. I mean, we just wear on you a little bit. So I was real pleased with the way we played in that game for sure.
You must have been happy for the kids. These are kids that a lot of them did not contribute as that that much to the run last year, they've lost some close games. It was a must-win game. How they must have been just thrilled with themselves. How did they respond this week after passing such a huge test?
Yeah, I do. I think that they were pleased. I mean, the message for us has been, we're so close. We're really close. We just got to do the things in practice. We got to do the attention to detail, the small little things that are a difference between winning and losing. We've got to really focus in on those types of things. So I think to have those results and, to be able to feel that, it's been a little bit since we won a game. So, it's hard to win high school football games. I tell those guys all the time, you got to enjoy those. So I think the attitude was, this was a great win against a really good team. This was a much better, more complete game for us, the way we played, and we got to just build on this, and we got to keep this thing rolling to make sure, number one, that we get in the playoffs, and then when we're in the playoffs, we're playing our best football. So I do think that they were excited about the way we played.
Yeah, it had to be great. That was a huge win. That was a big result against a good team. But it's interesting that usually Oakland and Chantilly, the last several years, have not always been the strongest. But those are not gimme games this year. They both have played tough this year. You're going to have to show up to beat both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the great part about our district. I think everybody's well coached. Every team's going to be well prepared. All the kids play hard. It's just you cannot just show up and roll your stuff out to in our district. It's a whole bunch of talent. They've got skilled guys that are elite. They got a great quarterback. They got big physical offensive line. They got athletes on defense. So we're gonna have our work cut out for us. There's no doubt about it. But again, that I think that helps us kind of lock in and focus. One of the messages I've been trying to hammer home with our team is I really don't care who we're playing. As far as I'm concerned, we need to prepare. We need to focus on us and the things that we need to do to be a good football team. If we can focus on, the small details, the preparation, the focus, making sure we're getting the most out of every rep in practice, I feel like we have enough talent that when we step out on the field, we'll be competitive with anybody that we play. And we just need to make sure that we take care of the things that we have to take care of, control the things that we can control. And we're obviously going to study the film. We're going to talk through the guys with everything that we think Oakton's going to do. We're going to prepare them, but again, I want them to focus on what they do best and the things that they're going to do, so that on Friday night we can just fly around and have fun, not have to think about stuff, and just make sure that we're prepared.
Yeah, is that a big rivalry in football, Oakton and Madison? I know it's huge in some sports, but is it a big football rivalry as well?
Sure, sure. I mean, there was a long time when I first started at Madison, we didn't beat Oakton for 8 or 10 years. So it's definitely a rivalry. It's a little bit different than Marshall, because there's not so many of the kids that grew up playing together. Oakton's got a little bit of a funky district line as to where the kids go. So a lot of those kids, played Chantilly or other places growing up.
Hmm.
But there are some Vienna kids that go to Oakton. So there's a little bit of that. But we don't have quite the familiarity with the kids that we do with the Marshall guys growing up. But definitely, I mean, the school, we could probably walk over there faster than we could bus. But it's that close. So definitely a rival. And being in the district, I consider all the district games to be kind of rivalry games.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'm not going to ask you to look beyond those two games because I know you need to win those two games to. I know you'd like to make the playoffs. I know you like to get a home field for a first game, and all. It's always helpful. But I wanted to heap a little pressure on Coach Pudge because he told me he's got some players coming back. What does the baseball team look like for the spring?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I haven't spent a lot of time with those guys now, but um, you know. we're so fortunate at Madison to have Vienna Little League and kind of the Vienna structure of baseball that we always get kids that can play. Um, so it's just a matter of kind of pushing those guys to be as best that they can be. And obviously Pudge does a great job of that. Um, I feel like we've got a lot of kids coming back, but again, we're going to lose our top two pitchers from last year, Kale being one of them. We're going to lose a lot of leadership there. So there's a lot of room for kids to step up and kind of evolve into those positions. I think we'll have a lot of talent, but kind of how it shakes out and who's going to do what, that's kind of yet to be seen. So it'll be exciting. I'm not in any hurry to get out there with those guys. Like to take this whole season as long as I can. But once I get out there and start working with them, I think we've got the pieces to be a real good team again.
Yeah. How many football players play baseball?
Quite a few. Obviously, Matthew Weiler does. Will Smoot, Owen Elling is a wide receiver for us. My son Kellen plays baseball as well. So I bet we've got five or six guys that are competing for varsity baseball time.
That's awesome. Well, look, Coach, I appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday. I know it's a busy time, but off a big win. Always love talking Madison football with you. Really enjoyed it. I've caught a couple games this year. I'm sure I'll be at least one or two more before it's all over. And if you go all the way to state again, it could be more than that. So I just want to wish you the best of luck, and I always appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course, Julian, and like always, so thank you for what you do for promoting high school sports. Anytime you need me, buddy, just give me a call. I'll come on.
Oh, it sounds great. And look again, best luck the rest of the year. I appreciate it.